Okay, NVIDIA, we really need to talk about this. Let me get my other quick stories out of the way first, and then we'll jump back into the RTX 3080 12GB, allegedly 11th January release. Some specs updates as well. It's not just more memory, and also, is this thing real? What are our sources? Let's jump into a few other quick things first. So for one thing, it looks like the Inno3D's press materials have given us some confirmation that NVIDIA's upcoming RTX 3050 is using the GA106 160 GPU. Now, this being based on GA106 tells us that this is basically a cut-down RTX 3060, rather than using, for example, the mobile chip version of the RTX 3050 and kind of beefing it up for desktop. There was some speculation over how exactly they were making this, but in these press materials, we do get a die shot where we can see that this is a GA106 150KA-A1. In other words, we can actually tell what this chip actually is. So it's a cut down 3060. I don't want to talk too much about this because I've already given a lot of my thoughts on the 3050, and price point will be everything, and I think it's going to be way too high in the actual market. Anyway, other quick things. We got a weird leak of the Ryzen 7000 Zen 4 chips, an 8-core 16-thread engineering sample showing up in the Milky Way at Home project. Now, this isn't really a benchmark, so it doesn't really tell us much, but it does give us some specs on it. And this version, I think the most interesting thing that we can get out of this is that it does list the cache as 1024 kilobytes, which is twice as big as the Zen 3 L2 cache. So interesting, but this doesn't really tell us a whole heck of a lot, other than apparently engineering samples are now out in the wild, and if that's happening, we might start to see other more interesting leaks with maybe actual performance benchmarks, hopefully coming in the future. We're also seeing that ASUS's upcoming Loki power supplies are going to have the PCIe Gen5 power connector, which is what we're seeing the RTX 3090 Ti, which comes out later this month, and don't get me started on that stupid card. But anyway, I'm going to rant about the 3080 12GB today. But anyway, what does that look like? That looks like this. And this is a lot like the 12-pin connector that we saw on NVIDIA's Founders Edition 30 series cards, except that this standard also has 4 additional pins that I believe are data connections. So anyway, kind of neat. We're starting to see some power supplies coming out supporting that. And another real quick one, this isn't really hardware, but it's tech enough related. I've seen so many people talking about this, and I think they're blowing this out of proportion. Yes, the Norton 360 Antivirus, it can install crypto mining software on your computer, if you ask it to. This is an opt-in system. It's not hidden. It's not mining on your computer without your permission. They just allow you to mine as a feature that you can opt into. And then, yes, they do take a cut of your transactions and a percentage off of your mining. It's just a feature that they offer through their software. I'm not saying I like Norton because, oh boy, do I not like Norton. I'm happy with Windows Defender on my computer myself. I think it gets the job done. But the point is, this is a big nothing story, but since everybody's talking about it, I thought I'd just, confirm. This is nothing. You have to ask it to do this, and it's not hidden. Anyway, the slightly bigger story before my 3080s story, rant, is that we are seeing some review kind of leak out for a laptop featuring Intel's Core i9-12900HK. This is a laptop chip, and we're seeing it coming out faster than AMD's Ryzen 9 5900HX. Great, but the power supply and energy consumption does look to be pretty high. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that the exact thermals can depend on, for laptop chips, this should be kind of obvious, but I'll point it out. Every laptop has different thermal design, right? So the designers of the laptop have a lot of control and input on how the actual thermals go. So you can't necessarily just blame the 12900HK until we see this in a variety of laptop models to compare it to. Now, I don't want to steal all of their benchmarks, but I will link this story And you can see that the 12900 HK is at the top of the pack in their tests that they're running here, including up against like first gen Threadrippers, which I think they had in here somewhere. I don't know, man. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to just completely steal all their charts. There are a whole bunch of them. But we did see, speaking of the thermals, it did hit a max temp of 99 Celsius and average temperatures around 69 Celsius and 76 Celsius for the package, and power consumption peaking at 113 watts, but averaging around 63 watts. Those averages seem reasonably okay. But they have a few comparison systems, like up against a Ryzen 9 5900HX APU, where the peak temp was 94 Celsius, so still pretty high, but a bit lower, average of 70, and max power consumption of only 65 watts and averaging around 30 watts. So the temps are also seeming pretty high on this comparison laptop, but those power consumption numbers do seem significantly lower, right? On the Ryzen system, a lot higher on the Alder Lake system, so something to keep in mind. Now, speaking of power consumption, there was honestly some interesting posts here from 3D Center on Twitter about how on the Ryzen 6000 series graphs from CES, not telling you that they were putting the 6800U 28 watt chip up against the 5800U 15 watt TDP. That's not a great look there, so interesting. I really do think that Alder Lake's very impressive in the mobile space. Yeah, the highest end chip might allow the power consumption to go up crazy, but I do think those efficiency cores are going to be very interesting in the mobile space, and I think that's one of the best things from it. Let's get to my rant, guys. Okay. So the RTX 3080 12GB graphics card on the 11th of January. First of all, do I believe this is happening? Well, we saw tons of leaks that this was coming in January, and I think a lot of people who've been following this, like me, expected to hear about this at CES, and then we didn't. So then I kind of was thinking maybe I'll just write this one off. NVIDIA decided not to do it. But now WCCF Tech, this is written by Hassan. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna try the name, but according to him, because it just says, according to our sources. I believe that's all they have to say about their sources. They just say it is their sources. There's no specific name, specific confirmation of where they're getting this from, but it is according to their sources. Okay, now, if you believe that, we should be seeing this chip announced on the 11th of January at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, this article is being presented as if they're extremely confident about this, but again, it's just their source, so I don't have any idea of what the track record is on this. Now, this is going to be a slightly beefed up chip. Now, in some ways, I'm really excited. This is the RTX 3080 that we all should have got at the beginning. It should have had at least 12 gigabytes. And you might be like, doesn't the 3080 Ti have 12 gigabytes? Do we really need this? Well, that does make it a little bit weird, but this is going to be not quite as strong as a 3080 Ti. This will have to have an increased memory bus in order to support the 12 gigabytes of VRAM. That's why the 3080 had the 10 gigabytes, is there's a certain amount of memory that you can fit depending on the memory bus that the card has. So they are having to beef that up. And according to this leak, it's also saying that they're going to have additional shader units, not that many. But basically, this is going to be a little bit stronger than a normal 3080. It's not just more VRAM, it has more memory bus, a few more shader cores, and all of that. So great. But basically, this is the card we all should have got, and that's exciting. However, this is actually really frustrating. Because I think that what's going on here is the same thing that's happening with that 3090 Ti. So if this is real, what I think is going on is basically when the 3000 series launched, NVIDIA obviously didn't know what was going to happen to the pricing in the graphics card market, right? So the price points that they picked were pretty competitive and seemed good. But as we all know, things are selling for like 1.5 to 2 times and sometimes worse, those actual list prices, right? So your RTX 3080 that's supposed to be costing $699 is actually usually at least $1,500, if not more, oftentimes more. And then I think NVIDIA responded to this by basically creating their Ti versions, right? So we got a 3080 Ti that was $1,200, and then they shifted most of their production to the 3080 Ti's. I'm absolutely thoroughly convinced that they barely produce any 3080s, and they try to produce mostly 3080 Ti's and 3090s. And now they're also introducing the 3090 Ti, and by the way, the reason I'm saying this is these are all based on the same GPU die, right? They're just slightly different cut down versions of that. So your supply for one of those is meaning it's not going to the others, right? So you introduce the 3080 Ti at an even higher price point. You've got your 3090, you've got your 3090 Ti now coming out to, again, eat up those chips and push them to the higher profit margin models. But this 3080 is apparently, according to the rumors, still going to be branded as a 3080, which means what I'm expecting to see here, if this is real, is that the 10 gigabyte 3080s just finally stop being produced. They're just done. And it'll be shifted to these 12 gigabyte models, which is good from the sense that this is the specs they actually needed. They should have never shipped it with 10 gigabytes. But it's bad from the sense that I guarantee you this thing will not have a $699 MSRP. I guarantee you that this is going to be at least $899, and what I would actually guess is that this is $999. So I think that what they're really doing is making their 3080 class card be $1,000. And again, these are MSRPs, everything's going to be actually higher. And then your 3080 Ti is that $1,200 MSRP. And then we've got our 3090 at that $1,500 MSRP. And I'll bet you that the 3090 Ti, if they ever bother to say it, is going to be at like $199.99, right? We're talking a $2,000 MSRP. So what I think they're really trying to do here is shift all of their MSRPs up to the 3080 is the baseline high-end card for $1,000, and everything else climbs from there. And that way they can stop the absolute farce of pretending that they're still launching 3080s at $699, which occasionally they shift a couple of them to Best Buy, which are immediately grabbed up mostly by bots. Anyway, and I think that part of this is just to grab the profit margin right now, but it's also so that when they launch their 40 series of cards, they can claim that the RTX 3080, and talking about the 12 gigabyte model, is going to be a comparison point at $1,000 MSRP. So when they launch their 4080 for $1,000, they can claim that that's in line with what they've done in the past. And then I think that in the 40 series, we're going to see $1,000 baseline for the 4080 and climb from there. We're seeing what the actual future MSRPs are going to be. I think it's going to be $1,000, $1,200, $1,500, $2,000. That's going to be the high-end pricing, and we only see stuff below $1,000 for 70 class cards. And then we'll see what happens on the real market. I need to stop ranting. What do you guys think about all this? And maybe this is just fake. Who knows? But maybe I'm getting worked up over nothing. I hope all of you have an excellent day.